right, so what up, everyone? We are live here on the podcast, and we got a very special guest here, D'Lo, my man, aka Dan, aka THEONE7136. How's it going, my man?
Oh, it's going great, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored and humbled to be here. Very excited.
Is this the first podcast you've ever done? Or you done?
As far no, I've done a podcast called Fuel Passion with one of my former colleagues, and he asked me about like sort of what the esports journey was last year and how I was able to, really grow within it. So that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool to kind of be part of that. And then I helped someone else with a podcast, but being interviewed it has not been my very first time.
Okay, for sure, for sure. How's the FIFA these days?
Yeah, FIFA Ultimate Team, where everybody breaks their controllers over the weekend, and it's either you have a great weekend or you're just in a really bad mood.
Uh-huh, right.
um, I think for me, this has been obviously with the pandemic, it hasn't been necessarily the season I would have liked and hoped. But on the flip side of things, I've been able to grow as a player. I found a coach who coaches the Greek Freak in Australia. His name is Zach, and he's been working with me for the last like month and a half. And I've seen my game like elevate as to see like how I kind of scale against the other players. So I think it's going the way that I want it to go because the overall goal is to get Elite One by the end of FIFA 21, and we're getting close to that. Just the way that I've been playing.
Okay.
Uh, I think what it's coming down to is just cleaning up the minor mistakes of like maybe making a forced pass into like the center or not taking my time into the final third. I also have gotten an esports psychologist who has like helped me like break down my day, ask me how I'm feeling, give me objectives to hit alongside my coach. So it's been like both of them has been really good for me as well as like helping me like with my work life balance as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still trying to figure out how that looks like within like my actual relationship, my girlfriend. So we're trying to fix that. But otherwise, it's going the way that I want it to go at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, you're like one of you might be like the only streamer I know that actually does like take the appropriate steps, like actually taking coaching and seeing a psychologist to like prep you to get to that next level, to get to that pro level
Hmm.
of of FIFA. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe we could even backtrack before that about you,
Yeah,
because you told me about like the certain time where when you first got into it, like you were in a tournament, like within your work, right? And then you won the
yeah.
tournament. So maybe share about that, like how you got into FIFA and what gave you aspirations to be like a pro gamer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been playing FIFA since FIFA 94 on the Sega Genesis. So it was a really cool opportunity for me and my dad to spend time together, and I would beat him pretty badly. And I remember one time there was a glitch in the game, and I was beating him 7-0, and he was like telling me if I score that way the same time that he restart the game, and I scored on accident that same time or
Mm-hmm.
that the same way, and I cried because I was so upset because
Uh-huh.
he restarted the game. But he would pick Brazil, I would pick Germany, and we'd play little tournaments with my cousin Scott, and he would pick Argentina, and so we kind of took me to then FIFA 98 on the PlayStation, so I was able to play on the PlayStation, and then when I really got like into it was after high school, FIFA 2004. So I was ranked 50th in North America, but at that time, like video games weren't like really big as far as like the esports scene. It was like you
Right.
played in the FIFA Interactive World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
You would play in these qualifiers, and then you would be able to like go to like the golden ball ceremony if you were to be the champion. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, my mom was like, "Oh yeah, video games isn't going to get you anywhere, so you got to focus on your school. But video games has always been a really big passion of mine. I worked in video games for Guitar Hero, Neversoft studio. They were subcontracted to Activision, so I got to be a QA analyst for a few years there. So I worked on Guitar Hero Aerosmith, Guitar Hero 4, Band Hero, and Guitar Hero 5. So that was really cool to see how I could break down code, give it to the programmers, break the game, and then they give me a new code, new build, and we'd be able to like play through the game and see if it worked or if I could find other ways to break the game. So it was really cool to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, fast track to now, actually about 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, one of my buddies, Andrew Brightman, he got into FIFA Ultimate Team really deeply, and friends talk smack. And my other buddy Guy was like, "Oh, you're nothing in this game. You'll get beat." And they were beating me,
Uh-huh.
whatever, because they had already their super teams, and I
Mm.
hadn't like really been uh really like educated on how Ultimate Team worked or functioned. So in 2018, I was like, okay, in 2019, I'm gonna get my team and I'm gonna be better than you guys, and I'm gonna beat you guys. So 2019 comes around, uh, and then I beat them,
Mm-hmm.
and then me and my buddy Andrew like split in Ultimate Team, like because we met in like the Ultimate Team Weekend League. I'm sorry, it was FIFA 20, and we split, but overall. I was able to get Elite 3 consecutively, consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So like by the stats, I was like, okay, I've become better. But then I was like, man, I really want to pursue this. I EMLS had just started to like ramp up, and I was like, I really want to pursue this a little bit more seriously. And so then I like started to search like for coaches and how like these esport athletes were preparing. So I really did a lot of my homework, and so first I went through B Part Gaming, which I had my coach Khan, aka Jedi Jaster. He was able to coach me for FIFA 20 and then part of FIFA 21 this year, and so he was able to take me to Elite 3 in 1 year.
Okay.
So I listened to him. He was very anecdotal and analytical on how he broke down um, information for me, so I was able to like grow. But with coaching, it can be a little bit expensive. So, after this season, like I had to find a little bit more of like a cheaper alternative. So I was watching the Greek Freak uh, uh, stream on Twitch, and he was like, "Oh, like his chat was like, how do you get so good? And like, what do you do?" He's like, "Oh man, like my coach Zach, like he dropped his name in the chat, and I looked him up. I followed him on Twitter, connected with him, told him that I had just got an esports psychologist. So I was really serious about like pursuing EMLS next year. And then scaling back, I actually tried out for the Vancouver Whitecaps, got into the semifinals, got into the quarterfinals for Austin FC. But Blue won the whole thing, and he got to represent them this year. So Zachus has been like working with me uh, and really incorporating um, the importance of having skill moves in my game and not just having like the tactical ability of like breaking an opponent down. You have to have the skill moves. And he brought up a good point actually last night where he was like a lot of the players from North America don't utilize skill moves, and you see it in the North America or in the European sectors. You see it in the Oceania, which is the Australian sector, and you see it in the South American game, especially in Brazil and Argentina. And he was just kind of walking me through it, and we were watching film, and he was just like, "You have the ability to be at the top, but what's holding me back is having that composure in like the last few minutes of the game where I'm not patient or I not don't take my time to like pass it to the open player." So we're kind of finding a way to hone in on that game, and that's where my esports psychologist comes in, where he's like, in critical moments of the game you have to be composed. So there's like a whole like ethos as to like how you need to perform under pressure and duress, and especially if you're down in the game, like how do you like compose yourself in those situations. But I'd say the reason why I wanted to be passionate about getting into this arena was I wanted to do something that, you know, not a lot of guys my age do, especially in their mid 30s, and to show people like if you're really passionate about something and you really want to go after it, go after it. But you got to be completely invested and bought in and have the right people in your corner to do this.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot right there.
I know
That
that
you
was a lot.
unpacked there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first I want to ask, like, when you first started Ultimate Team, like, when you played your first 30, what was
Yeah.
your rank that very first
So
weekend league?
my very first weekend league, I got 14.
14.
And then I
Okay.
got the second one, I got 17. The third one, I still stayed at 17. And then the fourth one, I got 21.
Oh, okay.
So it was like getting better. And I think it was because I was just driven and I was playing like 20 games a day.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, I was playing like 20 games a day. You'd say
Okay.
five games is takes about an hour and a half without any extra time during
Uh huh.
division rivals. So
Yeah.
that's 3 hours. So 6 hours in a day I'd spend playing FIFA or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
what's the best ranking you got? Like the most wins you got on weekend league?
24, 24.
24.
Yeah,
Okay.
24. And that was at like the team of the season kind of time. I had a really, really good team. I had
Uh huh.
team of the season so far, Mbappe. I had the De Bruyne 99. I had team of the year. I'm sorry, team of the season Varane. Team of the season Virgil van Dijk. Team of the season so far. So my team. Oh, the Mendy, the Fusion Mendy on the left. Like my team was just completely stacked.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think that was like, and I had invested maybe about $900 in the game at that point.
Mhm.
So, so it was like, I had a strong team, not as good as the pros, but a strong team to compete.
Okay.
Yeah,
And have you only hit that once? 24 mark?
yeah. I've gotten close. I feel like I was like 21-3
Okay.
recently, maybe
Okay.
about a month ago. And I just bottled it, man. I think it was like before I got everybody involved, like I was like, and I wasn't playing bad. It just when you start to tilt, you tilt, and you just kind of have to walk away. But my problem was is like, oh my God, I was so close, to getting Elite One, right? Where I should have just maybe walked away when I lost and then like reset and then, started the other game.
Mhm.
But I just kept going, and I ended up only getting 22 because I lost a lot of the games.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost seven straight, or
Oh,
no,
okay.
six straight because I won 22. Yeah.
During that stretch, were their opponents like pretty tough? Were they pretty
Uh,
good?
I would say out of the six that I lost, I would say two of them were really good. The other ones were really equal, and it just came down to, again, keeping myself composed and making a
Mhm.
mistake or having the lead right after I've been down and then just making a bad pass and then like screwing up and then going into a negative mindset and then him scoring again and then him winning the game. So,
Mhm.
or going into PKs and then me bottling it in PKs. So I remember it very vividly because it was a really good learning lesson for me to how to like just keep locked in and composed. And then if I get scored on, just to like maybe take a pause, take that 30 seconds to recompose myself and then start again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um so maybe you can like share like what are the steps to take for you to be like just a recreational player to
Okay.
becoming a pro game player? Like what do you need to do? Like do you need to like be verified, be elite 1 and or like you also
Yeah.
mentioned like joining those tournaments to join like a EMLS team,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So, there's a difference between like being a FIFA enthusiast and loving the game and being a competitive player. I say having a FIFA enthusiast, you always want to talk smack, with your friends, having fun and all that stuff, and playing the game because you enjoy the game, you enjoy FIFA. I'd say if you just want to play the game just to play the game, obviously not invest in the game, like a lot of these players do that are competitive, and then just sort of like build a road to glory team, because a lot of like really good players are really that good that they can just not spend any money at all. A prime example is Nick from Run the Foot Market. Run the Foot Market. He
Right.
doesn't spend any money at all, and he's really good at the game. And the guy knows how to trade well. He has, his team is stacked, and he hasn't spent a cent in the game, from what I know. And he's famous for it. So he enjoys the game. He's good at the game, and he's really really like an expert in his craft. But then you have the pro players that like do invest in the game. Some of them are signed to teams that give them like a sponsorship, like allowance, right, to spend big in the beginning so that they can have the team set. You have your Ruud Hullets, your Vieiras, your R9s, and then in the beginning you'll have team guys who have Ronaldo or CR7, Neymar, your Mbappe is the meta team. This year, Renato Sanchez was that meta center defensive midfielder. Some people got Pogba. I love Pogba because he's strong and he's tall and he's good with the ball. So it just depends how like far you want to go for it. It takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice. I mean, these guys, I connected with Ryan Pessoa, who's uh, one of the representatives of Manchester City's pro team, along with Shells, and he is sponsored by Red Bull. And I just picked his brain, like how, because he plays on dual cross-platform, he goes 30s and O's or 29s and ones, and he plays maybe 30 or 25 games a day, or 20 games a day, 10 each. But if he's preparing for like a tourney, then he'll play more. But he just told me like to go into like the squad battles, play on like was it not ultimate, but legendary, master that function, then play on ultimate, master that function. And so when you go into the real games, you are then like you can practice your skill moves, your bridges, your directional nutmegs, your elasticos, your croquetas, your Cruyffs. And so I use that as like sort of like the like streets to kind of practice my moves, and then like I mastered legendary now, and so the next step is to master ultimate. And ultimate is really hard, but it gives me like a real sense of how to take that same sort of like patience and thought process into my division rival games where I'm in Division 1, where I'll sometimes play players that are like 2300 or 2400. And usually if you are at that caliber, you're either FIFA verified or you're a pro. So me, the highest I've gotten is 2100. So I've gotten to that feat. So I'm getting there, but it takes this is something you gotta be really willing to like accept the process, because you're not gonna get there in a day. Rome isn't built in a day, unless you're that wonder kid from you know Europe who he went like something like 599 games matches unbeaten.
Yeah,
But he
Anders.
Anders,
Anders
yeah,
Vergong.
yeah. So unless you're him, where you have just a complete understanding of the game, then it's gonna take you some time. I think what really cemented the you know, or kind of just gave me that validity of continuing to go for it is participating in that Nike tournament. I competed against everyone from Nike corporate and Nike retail around the world. So they had the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox tournaments, and I signed up for both. And I was like, oh, why not? I'll sign up for Xbox. Not my focus, but I just really wanted to do well on PlayStation. And so I played people from Brazil, Argentina, um, Costa Rica, Mexico, and Singapore, and India, and here, North America. And I was good enough to beat everyone on both consoles, and I beat and I won. They deemed me as the Nike FIFA 2020 undisputed champion. They interviewed me, which is on my IG. The whole interview is there. and it was just a really good like stepping stone for me. There were some good players that were good, but it just gave me the confidence I can continue to go on this path. So if anybody is out there that really wants to get into this field, it's a lot of commitment, it's a lot of time. You got to enjoy it. I would say the one downside of getting into this is like you'll never see FIFA the same way again. Like because you've played it competitively, like when you're trying to like play with your mates, you already know the functions and stuff like to play at a high level. So like unless that person has done it as well, it's like it's not fun anymore, you know? So I'd say that's the only bad thing I would say from this experience that I've gone through that I've noticed is that I'll never look at this game the same way again.
Mm. Mm. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how do you become verified through FIFA?
So you got to get 27 and 0. You'll have so from when the game dropped, you had until like December like 15th to qualify. So if
Okay.
you get 27 and 0, you're in. So each global series that event that launches, you go into qualifiers. And then if you make the top, I think 32 or 16, depends. This year's been weird because of COVID and the formatting, usually
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, you you are then televised to be able to, you know, play live. So
Uh-huh.
you get to see like some of the up and coming players. A lot of the guys from like the MLS scene were like talking about how the talent's getting younger and younger within FIFA, and it's kind of just staying there right now. And that these guys are ready to go, and they're playing like with the composure of like a 23 or 24-year-old, and they're only 16 and 17.
Mm.
So that's how you would get verified. And then if you win like the global series, and you would have to double check this, if you win a global series event, you get global series points. Now, at the end of all of that, if you have top global series points, you then go into a playoff to see who is the undisputed champion. Some of those global series points, I believe, go into the FIFA E Club World Cup. If you like are representing a team um, or yourself through like a sponsor or an esports division, then you would go into that competition. But you have to be ranked really high. I believe you have to, like for North America, you had to be like top 4 in the world or something like that. Um, because they broke it down into zones this year, so it wasn't all like usually it's like combined, but because of the pandemic, and you'll have to double check, the formatting. Us, I think they took the top, was it the top 12 or top 8? Can't remember. And then they competed to see who was the best within the zone. So Complexity won it this year. Jockson and his partner beat Chris Diddy from New York FC, and Chris has won all three. He's done the treble, where he won everything with the EMLS season, um, but he beat him. So Jockson's the best player in North America right now. So
Right.
there's just different ways to get there, but you have to get 27 and 0 to get there, or higher.
You have to win your first 27?
Yeah, 27. You gotta win or you can go 27 and 3, but as
Uh-huh.
long as you win 27, you are FIFA verified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then once you are verified, you could be in the qualifiers. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. For each global series round. So you have global series round 1, global series 2, global series 3, and global series 4.
So how many people are in the qualifiers then? When
Oh man, if you get 27, let's just say there's a lot. I think I saw the qualifiers from my old coach for Khan, and he was going to go up against a few hundred.
and that's just in his region, right?
Yeah,
So NA has like a couple hundred of verified
yeah.
FIFA players, and you gotta get how many? You gotta get what do you gotta place?
So from let's just say from the couple hundred, you have then your top. your 32. Once you filter that top 32,
Uh-huh.
then that gets filtered into the live broadcast.
Oh, okay.
32, round of 16, quarterfinals, semis,
Uh-huh.
you know, and then your final. And then they'll have they did it losers bracket, right? So that you can, like, if you go into the losers bracket, you win everything, and then you meet the guy in the final. Let's just say the guy in the final hasn't lost, right? He hasn't lost at all. You have to beat that guy 4 times, so twice
Mm-hmm.
to get a replay, and then another 2 times to have a replay, and where the guy only has to beat you the first and second leg, you know?
Oh, okay.
So there's more pressure on the person who's coming from the losers bracket than
Uh-huh.
the and I've seen it happen. I mean, Jackson came from the losers bracket when he beat Chris in the final. He beat him 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so to be the number one. And so it's pretty crazy, man. It's all mentality. I would say about 90% of it is mental, 8% is technical, and I would say 2% is physical because you need to make sure you're eating the right things. Like there's sleeping right. There's this thing called the Aura Ring that my coach, and not my coach, my psychologist wants me to get. I'm trying the fitting size right now where it monitor my sleep, and it'll tell you, hey, to have this much energy, you need to go to sleep at this time, and it'll tell
Wow.
me. So it's an investment, but I think I'm gonna do it
Oh, wow,
because I
okay.
think that it's just to give myself any sort of like competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Wow, dude. And then after, so let's say Jackson, he's like top of NA, right?
Yeah,
Now you compete against people in the top guys in other regions, right?
yeah. No, well, this year they didn't do that because normally, yeah, that's how it would be broken down. You'd have the EWorld Cup. You'd have everybody competing from all around the world. It wouldn't have been broken down into zones like it was this year. So this year was just broken down in zones, right?
Oh, okay.
So like Asia had their own zones, Europe had their own zones, and each country, like Italy and stuff like that, had their own zones. So because of pandemic, it's kind of like limited the ability to travel and be together. So they broke it down in zone. But normally, yeah, it would be just like, what's the word I want to use? It would be just all inclusive and just like all one, all together.
And then how many people would be in that like final tournament of the top players in the region? And don't they have like a tournament name for that?
So there's there's a couple tournaments. There's the E Club World Cup. There's the
Uh
E
huh.
World Cup where you're representing yourself.
Yeah.
It's the FIFA Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup, and then there's you have your FIFA Global Series events, and
Mm-hmm.
then each league has their own teams. Like there's the Eredivisie that has Ajax, PSV. The German Bundesliga has their own esports league. Serie A has their own esports league. MLS has their own esports league. So it just depends. Everybody has their own league, but like if you are to win, right, then you go into the tournament, whatever that may be. But because of the pandemic, it's kind of limited the way that it's ran and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you know? So all the qualifiers, they picked the winners already. It's all done, all set in stone, right? Right now.
Yeah, yeah. There's already like they've had the qualifiers have already like come and gone. The season's about wrapped up. EMLS is wrapped up. The FIFA E Club World Cup is done. The E Premier League just had their um, competition last weekend, which I watched
Okay.
Shells win it all against Olilito from Leeds United. So they went to
Oh, okay.
BKs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
So
then who won from the Europe qualifiers? Do you know?
it was a kid from the Netherlands. He won the last two. He represents Team Hullet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a
Wow.
young kid. He's like 16 years old, around there.
Oh, wow.
He's really good. He's very composed, very composed.
Mm. And
Yeah,
then how many regions are there?
I
Do you
couldn't
know?
tell you, man. There's a lot. I
Isn't it by
I cannot
continent?
tell you. Yeah, I mean, you have your European continent, but the way that they did it, I think they did it like you have representatives from England, representatives from Italy,
Oh, I see.
and then they've like combined it. So
Oh, okay.
not representatives, players. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a really crazy matrix. It's big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd have to
If
get like specifics. I'd have to go on like the FIFA Global Series like webpage, and I'm just going off of like what I've known. But it's changed so much because of like where the world is right now. So I couldn't really tell you like accurate facts.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, if you were like one of those top tier pro players,
Hmm.
what would be like the estimated figure of like how much you're getting paid doing this as your career?
Ah, man. I would say I think the biggest prize pool that I've seen, I think in EMLS was like 50 or 60K.
Okay.
The European tournaments are bigger. They have more of a bigger prize pool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the FIFA E Global Series, like if you get like second place, you get 15,000. You used to be able to get 30,000 if you won. I mean, 15,000 sounds great. And then how much you have on your contract with this esports team that you signed for. This is how much you get for the season. This is how much you get for like bonuses if you go further into the tournament. This is how much you get if you win the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of those players are sponsored, so you allocate that money. And some of them are content creators, so they
Right.
get money from there. So it's nowhere near where it needs to be, in my opinion. I mean, you see, especially in Call of Duty, because there's such a big community. You see tournaments for $200,000, $500,000, a million, 2 million. Fortnite, the same thing, $2 million. That guy Booga, who won it a few years ago, he won $2 million playing Fortnite in the Coliseum.
Hmm.
And it's just not where I just feel like for what it is, how many people play, how much time you have to devote into the Ultimate Team competition. I would hope that maybe in time that the prize pool gets bigger because these guys are devoting their lives and their time just like anybody else does in a video game on any sort of other platform and game.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd just like to see it grow, especially within the women's game as well. The women's, um, you know, segment of women competitors is starting to grow, which is really cool to see. So I hope that they also like in time can, make a space for that, for that, diversity and inclusion space for them
Mm-hmm.
because it'd be cool to see just to have like equality across the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Um. Yeah. That's really interesting to see. But I feel like I would feel like they get pretty good money considering the fact that you add all those factors together with the content creating, the prize pool, sponsorships. I feel like you do pretty well, no?
That's
As
a
a top tier.
small percentage that gets all of that, though. You got to think there's like hundreds of players that are signed to esports teams. Not everyone's going to get a sponsorship deal. Not
Right.
everybody's going to get a good contract, especially if you're young. And not
Mm.
everybody's going to be a content creator because, you got to be, very personable, very happy. You're sharing your life with the public
Right.
on a digital platform, and
Yeah.
good example. I wasn't feeling very well yesterday, but I still went on because I needed to, right, to stay
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah.
And I was able to grow my community by 6 people. 6 people, were able to go on there. I was having a tough day, but some of those guys that are having a tough day, they'll want to go on there, and so like it's sort of like again a commitment, a consistency factor, and are you that marketing face?
Mm-hmm.
Does Snickers want to partner with you like they've done with like Castro or Bateson
Mm.
or some of the like the Bugs Club or Run the Foot Market or Casey
Mm-hmm.
Chai underscore Casey. So it's just it's a lot. So that's why I say like the people who are really devoted, like I wish there was a bigger budget so that
Mm.
the players are like equally in a perfect world equally compensated, but it's just not that way.
Yeah, man. I hopefully it gets to a point where they do generate a lot of revenue, and you see a lot of viewers watching it, so these players could get paid more.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, we didn't mention it in the beginning, but we didn't mention I wanted to plug you in your Twitch. Maybe you
Yeah.
could, cause I know you stream as well, and
Yes.
you do post some content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Mixture of like Warzone and FIFA. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But maybe you could share like your link for your Twitch
Yeah.
and YouTube and Twitter or whatever.
Yeah,
Any
so
social media.
My Twitter is the one THEONE 7131.
Mhm.
That's my Twitter.
Yeah.
My Instagram is the one 713, and then my Twitch is the one 7136. And why do I have it like the one? I That's my very first user PSN account that I created for FIFA 2004, and that's when I started playing online, and so I just never changed it.
Okay.
And then the 713 is, so 7 is the number that I used to play or used to wear when I played soccer
Uh huh.
competitively in
Uh huh.
college, and when I got to take my talents overseas. So I just kept that, and the 13 is my cousin's number. So
Okay.
the one that he used to wear. So that's the significance of that. But
Mhm.
that I never changed it. I just kept maybe one day I'll change it if I like start to like really blow up in Twitch. Then I'll like probably change my branding to Dlo713.
Okay.
But because everybody knows me by Dlo,
Right.
um, short for Daniel Lopez.
Yeah.
But until then, I'll just keep it that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'll drop the links in the description below after this, so people
yeah,
could check it out.
perfect.
Um, but when you do stream, like whenever you play your weekend league games, would you rather play them off stream or on stream? Do you play better with either way, or
Yeah,
one
that's a
way or the
great
other?
question.
Yeah.
So we broke that down. So my esports psychologist and I broke that down. I was like, man, like I don't have to when I play just offline, off stream, like I can just focus on the game. Like I don't have to focus on my chat. I don't have to focus on like entertaining anyone. I could just focus on the game. But it's very empty, right? Like you're just playing a game, you're sitting there, you're trying to get a result, and that's it, you know? And so I feel like streaming brings that like sense of like people are supporting me, but also it brings a sense of a factor of pressure, right? Because if you're losing, you got to keep yourself composed and you got to score, and then you got people watching you, and then you got to also engage with them. So there's a balance, right? And so I've learned, when people are talking to me and I'm like really hyper focused on the game, let me just get to the like halftime or the full time or the like a pause, and then I'll read the chat, acknowledge them, and then I'll go back into the game and then make sure like I'm locked in. So it's kind of something that I've built over time. When it I feel like I've played better now with streaming than not streaming because like again, it's just not as fun. So, and I want to play the game because it's fun, and streaming is the way to do it now. But
Mhm.
if it's like a really like I had a stream for the Vancouver Whitecaps, that was a lot of pressure. That was a lot of pressure
Uh
because
huh.
I was down, and then it was like the 87th minute, I scored, and then I scored again to win the game. So like, then people were like got excited with me.
Uh
But
huh.
again, there's that sense of pressure. Um, but I would say I would prefer playing online and stream. You'll
Okay.
see some of the professionals, they'll turn off their camera, um, and then just focus on the game because they don't want to have to look at themselves while they're playing like a qualifier. Tom does it, Ryan Pessoa does it. Hashtag Tom.
Oh,
Ryan
okay.
Pessoa Jackson did it last weekend for the qualifiers where he was streaming,
Uh-huh.
but he was off the camera.
Okay.
So it just depends on the severity or the importance of the tournament because you just want to be locked in, you know? But
Right.
you have to that's the thing. You have to stream the game for qualifiers. There is no you can't. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Because then people can say, well, he did this or she did that. They cheated this way or they didn't play fair that way. So
Right.
that way there's like a track
Uh-huh.
of having your game recorded, and then once it's done, the judges can review it, etc.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha.
Excuse me.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I could point out some things maybe for me from my experience since I stream
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I do get the fact that like when I'm off stream, I could just focus on the game
Hmm.
and I don't have to like look at the chat or worry about some something that someone said or whatever because I could be distracted on like the topic that they're talking about. I could just get carried away and just be on autopilot playing FIFA, you know, but not really focusing like tactically on what I should do. But like you said, like when you do have the chat, you do have people encouraging you and giving you support or even giving you some tips, on how to play that game, that specific game. And actually, one thing that helps with streaming too is like I actually don't rage as much on stream because I don't want to look like foolish out there like
Right.
like throwing my controller like in front of people, and so I'm like more emotionally intact while off stream I could get a little bit more upset for some
Yeah.
reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that I'm similar in the way that you handle it. Like you're just disappointed, and then afterwards, after you get off stream, you just kind of I'll come in the other room and I'll just loud, scream loud, and then the girlfriend will ask me what's wrong, and I'll say, well, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to, and here's why. And then she was like, well, you'll get it next week, and just kind of take it from there. But yeah, I don't think showing violence and just raging, I
Right.
think that's a little toxic, but you're in control of your own destiny. I just feel like you go win if you win, you lose if you lose. I don't blame the game. I never
Yeah.
have.
Uh-huh.
Some people do, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like I would watch like rage compilations on YouTube and then you just see people just go off and I'm just like on one hand it's like it is kind of funny, but like I laugh in a way where like I totally understand how they're feeling. And
Oh yeah.
like but at the same time it's like embarrassing. Like I don't want that to be me. Just doing that. Just going off like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um but I guess we could touch on one more thing before we
Sure.
end.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, so what do you think about the FIFA gameplay for 21
You
or at
know,
this point in
at
21
this
too?
point, I think it's more, people are complaining oh, people the bridge has been nerfed, or the Elastico was nerfed, or the Steppovers, as we talked about, you and I, they were nerfed pretty badly.
Yeah.
I think it's made the game a little bit more realistic, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I think it's allows players like me, where I see the game in a different light because I played soccer in real life or football. Um, it allows me to incorporate these skill moves a little bit more efficiently than as if these things were, or these skill moves were just like a fantasy or a video game.
Mm.
So in having experience in working in the video game industry and looking at some of the bugs there are, you're bound to have bugs in your video game.
Mm.
I think there's no video game is gonna be perfect, right?
Mhm.
So I think that, well, people criticize FIFA and EA Sports. Well, they don't take that much time. They use the same engine, blah blah blah. I think the game has been different this year.
Okay.
compared to the other years prior. I think it's been different. It's more realistic. You can't just like do a pass if you're like turning behind and it goes perfect to the other guy like at the complete like different direction. Whereas like in FIFA, like in previous FIFAs, that was the case, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been fine. Other
Okay.
people have their own opinions,
Mm-hmm.
especially some of the content creators. I don't really blame my losses on like the gameplay.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, your game's gonna have bugs, and that's totally fine. No game's perfect. I if EA Sports were to, if I were to say, hey, EA Sports, there was one thing that would improve in sort of the gameplay and the overall experience, I would say for people who do, Ultimate Team, maybe have a little bit of a higher percentage in like packing something good because
Mm.
for people like me and others that invest in the game, like we invest hundreds of dollars and like we understand in order to make money and profit in a business, you got to have that sort of like low percentage of packing something good.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I would hope that maybe it just have that little bit more probability, especially for people who like finish top, like for the 29 and O's and your 30 and O's and 27 and threes and 28 and twos, and 23 and sevens, that they would get something comparable to what like they put in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the thing that I would want to change.
Okay. Um, do you people have speculated there's like DDA and
hmm
like EA having a ploy on like helping some players win over others. Do you believe in that?
I think that you have your pro player cards, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
some of the tournaments that they do play, like obviously the pro players are going to get some pro player cards, but they're pro players,
Uh-huh.
right? So I'd say, yeah, you're going to have an advantage as a pro player because you're a pro player.
Mm.
You're playing against other pro players, and when you play weekend league, you're playing obviously players that are not at that caliber, but you're also playing the players that are pro players. But
Mm-hmm.
then that's why you have a separate like campaign for you to play other pro players, and that's sort of the even like platform as to how you can compete. So I'd say, yeah, but that's like justified, right? But I don't think like EA is helping like give an unfair advantage to a competitor. It's just that's how there's like these players are categorized. They're pro players, and some of them are going to get a like their pro player cards. But when it comes like tournament time, they can't use those pro players. You
Mm.
have to use like there's certain guidelines and rules that you have to follow, and you can't use your pro player cards.
Mm-hmm.
But in weekend league, you can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But in terms of like DDA, like in terms of like AI and their kind of like I don't know, doing their own thing in the gameplay or having this kind of
Uh,
ploy of like players running into each other or like do you believe in all that?
I believe there's coding that that causes that if you do a certain function.
Okay.
So like when you're like working in QA, there are certain actions and functions that you'll do in a game where the code will read that way, but then it'll make the other code talk, like just say the two center backs. Okay, so if I do like an elastico, then like a heel to heel, and then another combination, and then another
Mm-hmm.
combination, that will confuse the code that can like that code won't talk to the center backs, and it'll corrupt the code
Mm.
within the two center backs, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
cause them to maybe like if the he did all that, if that user did all that, and then the other user that's controlling the center backs tries to move their like center backs, maybe it like messes up like the actual like functionality of the actual player
Mm.
because you spammed all these different codes and commands.
Mm.
That other code that was on those defenders wasn't written or corrected. But that's why you'll see some of the updates
Mm-hmm.
that go into like Ultimate Team is because they're doing their best to correct the code. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Gotcha.
So I say there's that. I don't think. other than that, there's a way to cheat. There is a way
Okay.
to DOS where you like you have people rage quit and then you get the loss. You know, like where somebody maybe pulls their like, you know, um, their like Ethernet and then you get the loss when you're winning. Um,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and the other person won't get the loss, right? So I'd say I wish FIFA like made it so that you don't get charge the loss or something like that. But then that could be a whole can of worms that they have to open up. So I don't see a way they can kind of play around that because then that's you accusing another player, and then they got to open this huge, So
Right.
it's just really tough. If this game was on computer, there is a more probable cause for a player to kind of maybe cheat or boost. You see it in Call of Duty all the time. That's one of the reasons why people complain about the game because there's so many cheaters and there's so many programs from a desktop perspective that they can implement,
Mm-hmm.
like aim assist or to be able to see other players. I forgot like that with that. Even if they're ghosted, you can still see it. But you can tell when someone's cheating because all the code is messed up and all that stuff. So
Mm.
it kind of sucks that people do what they do with that kind of stuff. But it is what it is, man. People are gonna try to just get an unfair advantage. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. But you can't. I don't think you can cheat in FIFA because it's on console.
Gotcha. It's less
Yeah.
likely to implement like a cheating program in a console.
It's a very less likely, like it's very improbable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you broke it down like that, cause with the coding and all that, cause
Yeah.
then like even I better understand like how the coding works and how the gameplay kind of
Yeah.
interacts with you. And you have like that background, that gaming
Yeah.
background as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That was very informative and
Yeah, yeah,
it was good.
absolutely, man. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, we'll just wrap it up here. I think we're like an hour in.
Okay.
But
Fantastic.
yeah, really appreciate you being in this podcast. And yeah, just good luck on your journey, man. I really do hope you get Elite One and get verified, and you know, I just hope big things happen for you.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, yeah,
I always appreciate your support and
yeah.
the biddies that you've shared and some of the great vibes and great times that you've provided in my stream and just in our Discord chats. So
Mhm.
it's obviously always a pleasure. I like I said, the goal is to get Elite One next year is to get onto an esports team and then really do it from there. So again, appreciate your support. Thanks for having me, and we'll get caught up soon.
For sure, man. For sure. If you don't mind sharing your links again, so people can know where to catch you.
Yeah, so if you want to check out your boy D'Lo, follow me on Twitter at the17131, for Instagram at the1713, and at Twitch it's at the17136. So you can catch me usually on the weekends in the evenings, and sometimes during the midweek. Otherwise, stay Stassi, keep it frosty, and always keep it fun and crazy, guys.
All right. So again, we'll drop the links in the description below. But thank you once again, D'Lo, for
I
the
appreciate that,
podcast.
Kobal.